Welcome to our Let's Talk TriDelta podcast. I'm Mindy Tucker, TriDelta's CEO, and I am so excited that you've joined us today. One of the best parts of my job is I get this opportunity to meet and talk with so many of our incredible sisters and hear their stories. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Heidi Guest from our Beta Pi chapter at the University of California, Davis. And Heidi has generously given of her time and talent to TriDelta and to St. Jude over the years. She's a TriDelta Woman of Achievement. She had this impressive 40-year career in the beauty industry, having spent the majority of her time at the Clinique Vision of the Estee Lauder companies. She was one of Philosophy's main CVC ambassadors. She's just an impressive woman. I can't wait for you to meet her today and hear more from her. Now she has started her own company. She's the founder and CEO of a strength-based advising company, Forte Advisors. And today we're going to talk about this latest career transition that she's made and the role that TriDelta played in that. And so I can't wait to introduce you to her and dive into all this with her. Heidi, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Mindy. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start at the very beginning, at Davis and TriDelta. How did you end up there, and what did it mean to you to join TriDelta?
Well, Mindy, it's funny. I was 17 when I went to Davis. And so I was a young freshman, and I was really looking for a home away from home. My parents, neither one had belonged to a sorority or fraternity. But what was interesting is my senior year, a lot of women who I'd known my entire life turned up and told me their stories of sorority. And they offered to write letters of recommendation, and they painted a picture that kind of matched my vision, mission, values for my life. They talked about a sisterhood that was beyond 4 years. And I remember people saying that. They
Yeah.
said that it would help me with my academics because UC Davis was a pretty challenging curriculum there. And they also talked about the fact that they were still involved in philanthropies. And some were Trideltas, some were not. But I got this wonderful feeling of Panhellenic spirit. And so I decided to take the plunge and go in and thoroughly enjoyed my experience. Tridelta, really, I knew almost immediately that was the house I wanted to join because again, it matched my values. That's super important to me. And what people talked about, no matter who I talked to, they really focused on the same things that mattered to me.
Love that. In line with the values from the very beginning.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so after college, you stayed on with TriDelta as a field consultant.
Mhm.
That's what we now call our chapter development consultants. How did that experience prepare you for your career?
I think more than anything else, I've always told people, and other Trideltas might have heard this before, that being a chapter consultant or a field consultant was like a leadership learning lab. I really had the opportunity to see the United States at that time. Later, I would lead North America and a global enterprise, but I got to see the United States. I got to see that we are very different countries within a united country. And I got to respect, mores, cultures, differences. Because a Californian, I thought the whole world was like Northern California. Well, that's not true.
Right.
What I also was able to do was I learned how to focus on what was right with people and maximize the investment of time, usually 4 to 5 days I would get in one location to make a difference. Usually there was a metric we were trying to reach. One of my specialties at the time was recruitment. So I really wanted to become, I almost felt like a cultural anthropologist. I went in among the natives. I learned, their ways. And then I found a way to lead from where I stood while respecting the way they did things. I learned that you can have the same goal, but people accomplish it many different ways. That couldn't have been a more powerful start to my career in beauty and leading at a much larger level.
Well, let's go there. So you
Mhm.
finish with your term as a CDC, and then
Yeah.
you start making things happen for yourself. How did you end up in the beauty industry? How did you get that started?
Well, it's kind of funny the way I started because a lot of people don't know that Tridelta launched my professional career for sure. And when I got out, there was a best practice that kind of happened where two major global corporations, I won't name them today, They liked field consultants because we had a certain maturity, we had a
Mhm.
certain ability to pivot, to flex, to be very successful in sales. And so one of them recruited me. And it was a company that at the time wasn't in health and beauty, but they told me, hey, kids, someday we're going to be in the health and beauty space, beauty. They weren't at the time. I sold more personal care items, but I got a great education there. But you know what, Mindy? I didn't like it. I did really well at it, but I hated it. I and I remember I was in a seminar at the headquarters, and it's a wonderful organization, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And they said, you've got to love the product you sell. And I thought, do I love this one, or this one? No. And so at 24, 25, I thought, what products do I love? And I opened up my medicine cabinet and there was Clinique everywhere. And I thought, I love Clinique. So I had the naivete at the time to call Estee Lauder Corporation, ask to speak to someone at Clinique, and a gentleman picked up the phone, Herb, who later became my boss. And he was a former representative of this particular company. He knew my training and he said, I want to talk to you. And that's how my career with Clinique began. He said, listen, kid, a lot of people called girls kid at the time. He said, listen, you're going to have to go behind the counter because you need to learn about this business. My father and mother were not happy because I took a major pay cut. I gave up the
Sure.
company car. I went and worked in a department store. But that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I learned how to be the spokesperson for an organization. I learned how to personify the values of an organization. And I learned that the client comes first, no matter what. So when I went to New York and was in the ivory tower working and leading Clinique North America, they called me Mikey, if you remember that old Life cereal ad, because they would always ask me, Heidi, does this idea work at the counter? Because I had the vision, but I had the practicality to
Yeah.
understand how things worked. And I developed a very strong relationship with people at all levels of the organization because they saw that I literally went from the mailroom, to use a commonly used idea, to leadership position. And that gave me a certain authority that I don't think any other executive had up to that point.
So interesting to hear you talk about that because I've been having this conversation with my son about, he knows there are certain jobs that, you go in and you're guaranteed to make money, and but some of the
Mhm.
things he's interested in are not like that. And we've been having this conversation about how in your 20s, when he's not there yet, but when you're
Yeah,
younger, you have the ability to make some of those decisions. You can fail a little bit. You can take the pay cut and do the risky thing. Um,
totally.
I did it. My dad thought I was insane for going to work on Capitol Hill for barely any money, but it
Right.
worked out. I had a great career out of it. And like you're saying the same thing. You took the leap and you started out at the bottom, but you worked your way up and it made you more successful working your way up because you had done that.
Absolutely. I always say to, people I mentor now, because I've mentored probably thousands of people at this point, is do what you love. If you can just do what you love,
Um,
you're going to be successful.
yeah.
And there's so many people that go to what they think they should do, like I did. People said, oh, wow, you got a job with this company. And I could have stayed in it and tolerated it, but I wouldn't have been a workaholic like it. I would have dreaded Monday mornings, and that's no way to live.
Yeah. So I know in talking to you about your roles in some of these companies,
Mhm.
strengths is a huge part of how you step into these roles and how you manage people. I'd love for you to give just a minute or two for our audience that doesn't understand Gallup strength, doesn't know what it is, this is what the concept is. But I'd also love to dig in a little bit about how you use that in your roles, um, how you managed people, how you brought that to bear, where you really saw success from bringing in people's strengths.
Yeah. Well, that's my specialty. So though the background is beauty, those 40 years, my specialty is human development and developing executives within the corporate environment. And I did that in a number of ways. About 30 years into my career, I learned formally about identifying talent, innate talent. It isn't experience, it isn't education, it's innate talent. And the leader of our organization, Mr. Leonard Lauder, said it's not going to be another lipstick that gets Clinique to number one. It's not going to be another powder. It is primacy of person. And so as I studied, because I was charged to do this, studied different organizations that were strengths-based companies, putting people in the right place on the bus so that they could have outstanding performance. I said, whoa, this is going to make a big difference for us. We identified talent at every single level of the organization. This is how you're born. Your full talent is baked when you're about 11. And we put people in roles, actually created roles that worked with their talent. Because the idea is in talent-based leadership that if you do what you're best at, you can perform 6 times better than someone else and have 3 times more productivity. Well, sure enough, we tested this concept at Clinique. We tripled sales by putting people in the right place on the bus within months. And we
Wow.
drove over time, over 2 years, a 7-time return on investment. So it isn't kumbaya, what's your zodiac sign? It's scientifically identifying what makes you great and then linking it to performance outcomes. So I've done that throughout the cosmetic industry in a number of different ways. And then I brought it to at-risk youth because I thought if kids that are trying to get to college could get this science that we paid millions of dollars for, what would happen? How could we transform the world if kids knew what they were good at? We got them through high school. If they're living at poverty, they don't even know if they have food when they get home or lights on, and get them to top colleges because they had academic potential. What will happen? And those kids now are in their 30s. And a lot of them I call doctor. They've earned their PhDs, they're lawyers, they're innovators. So the science of talent is transforming.
It's,
And that's why I want to do this for people the rest of the days of my life.
it's so interesting to hear. I hadn't thought about that, but what a leveling of the playing field. Everybody's got strengths, everybody's got talents. We've all got something we're good at. And so no matter how you grew up, no matter what your background is, no matter how much money you have, you've got talents. I had never thought about it in that way until this minute when you talked about it. But wow, what a powerful concept to bring to them.
And I think what it is, Mindy, is knowing the talents is great. What I specialize in is looking at each person uniquely. There's a 33 million chance that I will see the same talent profile for a person. So it's always interesting to me. But what's interesting too is you need to make people accountable to their talent. It isn't just you have it, you got to use it. And that takes a discipline.
Right.
But when people use it, it releases endorphins that make them feel good. Like you're running, if you're a runner, that runner's high. It gives that same feeling and you want to use them more. So there's a lot of scientific research about it. The American Psychological Association validates this method. I'm a nerd. I like to know it's a science that leads to results, but it's proved very positively in my career working with people in all different walks of life.
Well, TriDelta uses the strengths-based approach. We use it on our staff, we use it with our boards.
Yeah.
And so last year, you and I had a conversation about whether or not you could come alongside us and help us with our onboarding. We had new boards coming in, 3 new board chairs and new boards coming in, and you and I started this conversation. And as we started the conversation, I didn't realize that you were sort of at a career crossroads.
Right.
And I'd love for this is sort of a beautiful story that played out. And I'd love for you to kind of share that, like where when I came into the picture and we started this conversation, where you were and what some of the decisions were in front of you at the time.
Yeah. I mean, Mindy, it was Tridelta has been such a happy coincidence in my life. I think that's the best way I can say it, or a happy collision. Because you approached me, you and Kimberly, probably about 2 weeks before I made a decision about what I was going to do. I at the time was 62 years old. I had experienced success. My career, I've always chosen companies very carefully that are always aligned with my values. Tridelta got that foundation in me. It's always been who I am. And in the last 13 years, I had done a number of things in strength-based work, but I ended up helping the organization in the best way that drove profits for them. And that was, and this is a philosophy, that was on-air spokesperson work for QVC, representing a brand that represented the relationship between science and inspiration, 2 things I love more than anything. But over time in any relationship, and as you think about yourself, as you're listening to Mindy and me, things change. You start out with certain goals and values and purpose together, and then little changes, little pivots happen along the way. And about 2 years before I departed in May, I began thinking, this doesn't match my purpose. It's getting further and further away from my purpose, but it was convenient at almost 63 to stay 2 years away from retirement. There were so many reasons to stay, but the voice in my head kept saying, Heidi, it's time to enter the third chapter of your career. And now it isn't about you looking to somebody else, it's about you looking to yourself. And
Yeah.
that's when you called. And so TriDelta became my first client. And that was such a wonderful thing. I am grateful for every single thing that's happened in my career. And I never blame or say, oh, that company was bad. No, we just evolve and change. And in my third chapter, my purpose is to uplift, to encourage, to inspire, and to allow people to live in their full potential. I need to do that more of the time. Can I do that through product sales and making people feel connected to philosophy? Yes. But is that really the best expression? If my time's more limited, which it is, I'm in the third chapter, what should it look like? And so TriDelta's handout to me made me say, I'm going to let go of the trapeze I'm on. I'm going to fly through the air with the greatest of ease. And you guys were there on the other end to catch me.
Wow.
And as soon as I began working with you, I knew this is what I was meant to do. So I launched Forte Advisors.
I love it.
It's amazing.
You and I were talking at the time about somebody had just told me that women typically reinvent themselves 3 times in their career. And so it was so
Yeah.
funny because you were heading into that third, like you called the third chapter. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm finding as you get older, that's a scarier prospect. I just
Yes.
big sort of job decision in my life. Um,
Yes.
and as you get older, there's scarier decisions to make, I think. Um, because you don't know how much time you have left to work and is this my last hurrah? I mean, all these things run through your head. And can I do it? Can I start something
Can I
new,
do it?
at this age? How did you feel about the change and what kind of helped you sort of get there when you were faced with all that, all those questions and the scary part of it?
Yeah. I think I really went from the power of purpose, which had guided me through the first two phases of my career, to am I living my life on purpose? And that seemed to me to be what tripped the light fantastic to say, what would you love to do until you're 80? What would you love to do? And then as I began, I reached out to sisters. I reached out to friends. I talked to people that I thought would talk me out of it. And every single person said, Heidi, this is what you're meant to do. I believe in you.
Yeah.
That affirmation was just that last piece. So I tell people, are you living on purpose? Ask yourself that. It's a tough question. And it's not fun sometimes to ask. And then ask your friends and family who know you best what they really perceive you doing if you're going to leave a lasting legacy. What are you? And the word inspire came up so many times, I can't even tell you. And Mindy, I'm going to tell you something. On my desk, there is a little Limoges piece. This was given to me by my pledge trainer at TriDelta, and it's been on every desk I have had.
Love that.
She gave it to me because I was the most inspiring pledge. It says MIP.
MIP.
And that's what's always reminded me. As funny as that seems, I don't know if I totally got it when I was 17, 18, but that's been my guidepost. How can I inspire, encourage, and lift people up?
Yeah.
For each one of us, think about the things you enjoy doing the most. And when I guide people now, I have individual clients at Forte Communication or advisors. What I say is, what would you do for free? If you could do anything for free, what would
Great
it be?
question.
What would
Yeah.
you volunteer to do? And then we look at their strengths. And the trick is linking their strengths, what they uniquely do that nobody else can do, to their intention. And that's where I see hearts ignite. And that's where I see people walking into their purpose with joy,
Yeah.
not dread. Now, certainly you have to be practical about things too. But in general, you've got one life. You might as well embrace it and love it. And now I know, time's limited. I'm losing friends at this age to disease, to a number of different things. Are you living your life as you intended? How do you want to finish this third chapter? And I'm content. Is it as convenient as my life where a paycheck was coming in every month and commissions were coming in? And all the benefits that went with it? No. But do I wake up in the morning happy and enthused to do what I'm doing? Yes. And I find my theme today, it used to always be beauty is as beauty does, was my guiding principle. Now my guiding principle is faith, never fear. I've told fear goodbye. Thank you for reminding me of all the things that can go wrong. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You care
Not
about me.
invited anymore.
Yeah, it's part of evolution. But I'm going to have faith and self-respect, knowing what I am capable of doing. And I truly believe that if you put that out there, what you really want to do, all these happy coincidences start coming towards you. I've seen it over and over again. And I'm the most practical of the most practical. But if you put out there, I'm not going to succeed, I'm not going to be successful, well, then the universe might give you more of what you want, what you just said.
Okay, now that everybody in the world out there listening wants to work with you, what do you actually do for your clients? So once you talk through, like you put the right people in the right place on the bus, what does that look like for a client?
Well, it's funny. I have never wanted to be pigeonholed. And because I said earlier, there's so many applications of strength-based psychology, I like to work with a number of different people. So I'll give you an example. I work with individuals to help them live into their full potential. After the age of 16, I work with a lot of kids that are making college decisions or in college. I work with their parents. I do something called collaborative coaching where I look at the parents' talent and the teens' talent so they can communicate better. It's all about better collaboration when you're working in teams. I work with organizations, Fortune 500 organizations, usually in small work groups. Because I've lived every side of corporate life. I know every single side of it. There isn't anything I really haven't seen. I've seen great corporations. I've seen some really bad ones. So I know the realities of people's situations, and I think that's why I developed trust. I was also one of the few working moms as an executive. So a lot of people understand that I've juggled things. And so we talk about things beyond their career goals or their goals of the moment. What I love about strengths is it talks about your life because the whole person comes to work, not a professional side, a personal side. So I love to work with organizations, individuals, teams, bosses, and the people that report to them. If you invest as a boss and you just know, you tell somebody, I want to know your strengths. I want to know how we can work better. You don't have to do much more. You don't have to have a sales meeting where you do a, rah session. If you just invest in that person and show interest, you'd be shocked what people will do for you. It's amazing. And it also allows people to communicate more clearly. So there's so many uses of this. And I've been lucky or fortunate to get to work with individuals and organizations, and some organizations that are Tridelta members, which
Yeah,
has been lovely. I recently made a decision that if anyone is a Tridelta customer, I've always connected it to philanthropy, anything I've done, whether it was clinique, philosophy, etc. But I believe in the causes Tridelta believes in, and I support them, our foundation, St. Jude, that a certain percentage, and I'm working that out right now, of any client from Tridelta will go to those one of those two places because it's all about people supporting people and allowing them to live their lives in a positive, productive way.
I love that. I love how you've sort of continued the thread of Tridelta throughout what you're, even when it's
Everything.
not directly connected. I love that. What do you think the skills are from Tridelta that have stuck with you over time from the earliest days as a pledge or as a consultant? What do you still feel like is there with you?
Some people might laugh, but I keep Tridelta's purpose with me at all times. I have it right here. um, it's a foundation for how you live. I loved it when I first heard it, to establish a perpetual bond of friendship among its members. So when any group I'm a member, whether it's clinique, philosophy, PTO, anything like that, anything I'm a member, how do I extend a perpetual bond of friendship to people? You can be friends in business or friends in
Sure.
communities or organizations. To develop a stronger and more womanly character, how do I represent that to my constituents? And how do I ask them to do the same,
Mhm.
to broaden the moral and intellectual life? I've done that at every single place I've been, encouraging others to do it and encouraging me to do the right thing, even when people aren't looking. What did Mark Twain say? Do what's right. It will please some people and it'll astonish the rest.
Right.
That's very Tri-Delta. And then the idea of assisting members in every possible way, that extends to me to assisting anyone in our community. And I mean a global community. So for me, it's always been St. Jude.
Yeah.
Recently, it's been the foundation. I love the idea that we are helping our sisters when they need it with confidential assistance. I love that we're helping children and families. So we should always be linked to helping somebody else and lifting somebody up. If my purpose is to inspire, it must include philanthropy. So Tri-Delta, to answer your question, has given me a template for how I live my life.
Yeah. I love that. Huh. You're the best spokesperson. I should just sit here and let you talk. All right, now we're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna move to this lightning round
Okay.
of questions. So I hope you're ready.
Okay, I hope I am too.
Okay. What is a book that has changed your perspective?
There have been a lot because I'm a voracious reader. The one that is always on my desk is Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. I open up a chapter almost every day. And Anne Morrow Lindbergh was a woman who was ahead of her time. She was married to the famous aviator. She lost her first child, the Lindbergh kidnapping, raised five children. In the 50s, a woman ahead of her time. She had a solid career. She was an aviator, but she went to this little cabin on Captiva Island to recharge and refuel. So she writes about being a woman and what it means to serve many purposes, but that you always have to go inside first. She's such an inspiration to me.
That's
Um,
like the oxygen mask. You have to take care of yourself
yeah,
first before you can help others.
exactly. But so that has allowed me to realize, when I went to college, it was you could have it all. But I didn't know any women that worked outside the home, that you could bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, that whole thing.
That commercial,
The
yes.
ambiance night. I
Yeah,
met the ambiance model once, and it's so funny in that I had no proof of that. So to see a woman like Anne Morrow Lindbergh that I saw so early do all those things was proof positive that I could do it too.
I love that.
Yeah,
All right, what's your favorite way to start your day?
you're gonna laugh. It's kind of has beauty and meditation together. I get up and make really strong coffee. And then I glug down a good amount of water to make my skin look good. And then I use a device that tones my muscles because it's the only way, my facial muscles, it's the only way I can meditate. So I
Oh,
go inside first as I'm toning my muscles, like exercise for the skin. And then the next thing I do, and if you know me well, I send birthday greetings, individualized birthday greetings to every single person on my Facebook page. And I really think about that person. I think why I'm grateful for them. I write something that I hope is meaningful and I put it out in the universe. So it's an inside outside with coffee and facial toning. I do it every day, no matter where I am.
I love that. And that's easy because you can do that wherever you are. So
Anywhere I am.
you
Yep.
so take it with you. All right, what's the best career advice you've ever received?
From a conductor, Benjamin Zander, who told me to always lead from wherever you stand, even when you're not the sanctioned leader. And he always told me the conductor never makes a sound. Um,
Mm,
and
interesting.
those two things, you bring the best out in people, he always said to me, look for shining eyes. If eyes are shining back at you, it means you've connected. If the eyes are dull, it means that you're not connected. But leading from where you stand has been the thing that has stuck with me. And then from Mr. Lauder, he used to always say to me, Heidi, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? And that's something that stuck with me too. Do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? And now it's my own faith over fear.
Yeah. Okay. And what is your dream vacation destination?
I got to go on it. My family is from Sweden, and I got to go back to my great grandmother's hometown, stand in her church, and see what she saw before she left her family, never to see them again, and come here to give us the life that we've been given. I thought about her and about my heritage. And when we were there at the church, it was kind of starting to drizzle. And as soon as I got there, the sun came out. And my husband and I both kind of looked at each other and I said, Anna, I'm here. And I could just sense
Yeah.
she knew at some level I was there. So my dream vacation was going back and exploring my heritage in Sweden.
Yeah.
And I really recommend that as a dream vacation for a lot of us. It's so important, as so many of us are immigrants, to know where we came from.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. How can our listeners keep up with you, follow you, learn more about you?
Well, there are a lot of ways. So, socially, Facebook, Heidi Guest. I have a page that I just do for fun called Heidi Guest Inspired Living, where I try to give about 3 to 5 times a week a source of inspiration. So, Heidi Guest or Heidi Guest Inspired Living. And then I will be opening my website officially at www.forteadvisors with an E
Okay.
dot com. And that will happen in Women's History Month next in March, because this is the next part of my personal history.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's sweet.
Or Heidi at forteadvisors.com. You can email me too.
We'll put all of that in the notes so people
Thank you.
can gather that and connect with you if they'd like. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was a great conversation. I love your inspiration and spirit and how well you are just an ambassador for the Tri Delta experience through all the parts of your life.
Well, Mindy, thank you for everything you've done for me. You never forget the people that really help you reach your intention. And you are one of those people that did that for me. And I'll never forget it.
That makes my heart happy. So thanks to Heidi for being here today. I'm so glad she joined us. One reminder for everybody, I hope you've paid your alumni dues. Now when you pay your dues in Tri Delta, you have the option to level up and get even more benefits for the dues that you're paying. So go check it out at tridelta.org/dues-and-benefits. You can find that on our website. I hope you'll like, subscribe, and rate the podcast. We have 3 stars in our Crescent, but we love those 5-star ratings. Thanks for being with us today, and until next time, Delta Love.